Dear students, today we are going to talk about autonomic pharmacology. So, what is autonomic pharmacology? Autonomic pharmacology is that branch of pharmacology which deals with the study of action of drugs on the autonomic nervous system. Or you can say that this is the branch of pharmacology that deals with the study of substances like drugs and neurotransmitters that act on the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so what is the autonomic nervous system? This is that part of the nervous system that is not under voluntary control. Okay, this is not under our voluntary control and concerned primarily with functions vital for life. Okay, for example, cardiac output, blood flow distribution, etc. That means the things, the organs, or the functions which we cannot control voluntarily. Okay, we cannot control our blood pressure, can we? Of course not. And blood pressure is vital for maintaining our life. So, two criteria in autonomic nervous system. One is we cannot control this voluntarily, and these things are vital for life. Okay, now what actually we discuss in autonomic pharmacology? Do we discuss all of the aspects of autonomic nervous system here? No. What do we discuss? We discuss about the neurotransmitters, the receptors, drugs, and their relationships. That means the relationship among drugs, receptors, neurotransmitters, and receptors, and their effects. Okay, now let's come to neurotransmitters. You already know about neurotransmitters from your knowledge of anatomy and physiology. So we are gonna review a few things about the neurotransmitters, okay? Because these things are important in the study of pharmacology. Okay, so what is a neurotransmitter? Neurotransmitters are chemical substances. These are chemical substances that are released from the nerve endings and transmit nerve impulse through the synapse from nerve to nerve or nerve to effector organ. What are the effector organs? The effector organs are mainly muscle or gland. Okay. Now, what are the criteria of a neurotransmitter, or you can say what are the criteria of an ideal neurotransmitter? So let's see what are these criteria. Number one, it should be present in the presynaptic neuron, usually along with the enzymes synthesizing it. So it means the neurotransmitter should be present in the presynaptic neuron. Now, what is a presynaptic neuron? Suppose this is a neuron and this is another neuron, and this is their junction. Okay, this is their junction. Now, the neuron which releases these neurotransmitters, okay, is called the presynaptic neuron, and the neuron where the neurotransmitter acts, that is called the postsynaptic neuron. So this is the postsynaptic neuron. Okay, so the neurotransmitter should be present within the presynaptic neuron. The second criteria is it should be released in the medium following nerve stimulation. So if you stimulate this nerve, that neurotransmitter should be released here in the synaptic cleft or synaptic junction. Okay, the third point is its application should produce responses identical to those produced by nerve stimulation. Now, what does it mean? It means If you stimulate this nerve, this will release the neurotransmitter here. The neurotransmitter will act on its receptor here and it will produce function. Okay. Now if you do not stimulate this this neuron, you do not stimulate this receptor, you directly put the neurotransmitter here on the receptor, so that will produce the exactly same action as the stimulation of this neuron. Okay. The next point is its effects should be antagonized or potentiated by other substances which similarly alter effects of nerve stimulation. That means if you give a drug, okay, that can actually produce effects like the neurotransmitters here, or the drug can block the receptor here, okay, and that will be exactly similar like stimulating this nerve or inhibiting this nerve. Okay. Now come to how neurotransmitters are released. So we have mentioned already a few steps of neurotransmitter release. However, let's take a review. Okay. So the steps here are: the first step is impulse conduction. You can see here the first step is impulse conduction. That means if a nerve impulse comes through the axonal membrane, okay, then the process of neurotransmitter release will start. Okay. So nerve impulse should come as action potential, okay, as action potential as the form of depolarization and repolarization. So after that means after impulse conduction, the second step is release of the neurotransmitter. So how neurotransmitters are released, you already know from the knowledge of your physiology. However, I will discuss it here briefly. Okay. So after action potential comes here, or the nerve impulse comes here, then the voltage gated calcium channels will open on the presynaptic nerve ending. You can see the voltage gated calcium channels here. Okay. So these will open and calcium will enter into the presynaptic nerve terminal, and in the presynaptic nerve terminal there are neurotransmitters stored within the vesicles. So you can see these circles are actually the vesicles. These ghost like structures are actually not ghosts, these are vesicles. Within these vesicles the neurotransmitters are stored. Okay. So upon calcium entry, these vesicles will fuse with the presynaptic nerve membrane. Okay. So this vesicle will get fused with this presynaptic nerve membrane, and the neurotransmitter will be released. Okay. Now the third step is neurotransmitters action on postsynaptic membrane. Okay. Now the neurotransmitter is released on the in the postsynaptic on the synaptic cleft, and then it will bind with its receptor on the postsynaptic membrane. So this is the postsynaptic membrane, and you can see this is the receptor, and here the neurotransmitter binds. Okay. The neurotransmitter binds with the receptor, and after binding, that will produce its effect, its action. So its action can be stimulatory or inhibitory. If this produces an EPSP, you can see EPSP means excitatory postsynaptic potential. If binding of the neurotransmitter with its receptor produces an EPSP, excitatory potential, then what will happen? Then this will produce a conformational change within the receptor, and the receptor will allow entry of some ions, okay, and this entry of ions will lead to opening of these channels. These are voltage gated ion channels. So the voltage changes and voltage gated ion channels open. That means action potential will be generated, and the action potential will then progress through this, okay, and that will lead to neuronal stimulation or glandular secretion or muscle contraction, so on and so forth, okay. And if the potential is negative, I mean that if that produces an IPSP, inhibitory postsynaptic potential, this binding, if that produces an IPSP, then this receptor will be closed and no action potential will be generated, okay. There will be no action potential, there will be so the postsynaptic membrane will be inhibited. That means there will be no glandular secretion, there will be no muscle contraction, in fact there will be relaxation, and there will be no neuronal stimulation, okay. So this is in short the transmission of neurotransmitters across the synaptic cleft, okay. Now here is one thing: the neurotransmitter, after binding with its receptor, cannot stay there forever. It should be removed from its receptor site, okay. If the neurotransmitter is bound to its receptor for a prolonged period of time, that will produce prolonged action and that will lead to harmful effects. So the after performing its action, the neurotransmitter should be removed from its receptor, okay. So how does it happen? So see here, termination of neurotransmitter action, okay. So there are various mechanisms of termination of neurotransmitter action, like it can be locally degraded, okay. It can be degraded by some enzymes, for example acetylcholine. It is quickly degraded by acetylcholine esterase enzyme after performing its action. Then it can be reuptaken, so it can be reuptaken into the presynaptic neuron, for example norepinephrine, and it can diffuse away and ultimately will be broken down by various enzymes. So the neurotransmitter can be diffused away in the surrounding area, and that will be ultimately broken down by various enzymes. For example neuropeptide Y is degraded in this way, okay. Now let's come to types of neurotransmitters. What are the types of neurotransmitters? We can divide neurotransmitters according to their mode of action, and also we can divide them according to their chemical nature, okay. So let's see types of neurotransmitters according to their mode of action. The neurotransmitters can be excitatory, for example glutamate and aspartate. They can be inhibitory, for example GABA and glycine. Neurotransmitters can be of mixed type, like acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, etc. Now come to another classification, that is according to their chemical nature. There are amino acid neurotransmitters, for example GABA, glycine, etc. There are monoamines, for example dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, etc. There are neuropeptides, and there are others like nitric oxide, purines, etc. Now, as we are studying autonomic pharmacology, we should know the neurotransmitters of the autonomic nervous system. As you know that the autonomic nervous system is divided into two parts. One is the parasympathetic, which we call in pharmacology the cholinergic system, and another is sympathetic part of autonomic nervous system, which we call in pharmacology the adrenergic system. Okay, so in the cholinergic system the main neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, and in adrenergic system the main neurotransmitter is norepinephrine, and there are co-transmitters. What are co-transmitters? We will learn these things within a few seconds. Okay, for example neuropeptide Y, VIP, there are nitric oxide, etc. Now come to co-transmitter. What are co-transmitters? So co-transmitters are the neurotransmitters. So co-transmitters are neurotransmitters that stay within the autonomic nerve terminals and are released along with the primary neurotransmitters. So these are secondary neurotransmitters, you can say, which stay along with the main neurotransmitters and released along with the primary neurotransmitters. What are their criteria? Let's see. So they may be stored in the same vesicle with the primary transmitters or may reside in different vesicles. Okay, they can speed up the action of the primary neurotransmitter or may slow its action down. So they have a modulatory effect on the primary neurotransmitter, and they can serve as primary neurotransmitter. They themselves sometimes serve as primary neurotransmitters in NANC neurons, that means non-adrenergic, non-cholinergic neurons. What are these? We are going to see these things now. So non-adrenergic and non-cholinergic neurons. Don't call it noradrenergic. This is not noradrenergic. This is non-adrenergic and non-cholinergic neurons. So what are these? These are the neurons of the autonomic nervous system that are neither cholinergic nor adrenergic. Okay, so these are not cholinergic and not adrenergic. They are usually present in where their site. So they are usually present in GIT, urinary bladder, vas deferens, respiratory tract, etc. Okay.